Take a look at the big picture of Hurricane Michael. You can see where this is located. Tropical storm is Leslie is behind my big head. It's moving away. Here's where Michael is, way on down, just off the western coast, western tip of Cuba, and it's intensifying. It did have 75-mile-an-hour winds as of 11 o'clock this morning, 80-mile-an-hour winds now, but it's interacted with land. Now it's going to emerge into the open water. It's like bath water out there into the Gulf of Mexico, so it'll really intensify coming up in the next 24 hours. Pardon me, by 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, 110-mile-an-hour winds. Now, the wind strength forecast can be a little bit off. They always are, just a little bit. But the track forecast is very, very tight, right on into here. There's where things are coming up by tomorrow night. Late, 2 o'clock in the morning, 120-mile-an-hour winds. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon Wednesday, making landfall somewhere, pardon me, near Panama City, Florida. Now we move on up through time. Thursday afternoon, 50-mile-an-hour winds. Now, it's likely to weaken further as it moves on over land, but it's likely to be somewhere into our neighborhood, somewhere between Hatteras all the way on up to Charlottesville. Now, the center point is very, very close to our area, and that could indeed be the case. But again, you know how wide the cone is by this point. It's an admission of forecast error. So when that happens, again, we're talking Thursday evening. If it gets close to our area, we're likely to see some heavy rain, some wind. But I think by the time it moves right on through our area, it'll have 35-mile-an-hour winds. But by the time it moves offshore again and re-strengthens out over the warm water, it'll likely be back on up to 65-mile-an-hour winds. And there's where it is by Saturday, moving way away. So here's what's going on with this. Forecast models are pretty lockstep and taking it somewhere very tightly right on up toward Apalachicola, on toward Panama City, Tallahassee, right on through this area. And then the cone widens a little bit somewhere into our part of the world. So we'll have to watch exactly where it goes. But regardless, it's going to be taking it on in over land. So we'll end up with some heavy rain out of it, some wind out of it. Likely we'll see wind gusts of 40, 50 miles an hour at the shoreline in Virginia Beach, and possibly more than that, possibly around 60, 70 for Cape Hatteras. But again, this thing is going to move on through real rapidly, and it'll likely be the worst of it on Thursday night overnight. That's where things are on up to the present time. There's a cold front out there. That cold front should sweep on through and punch that thing on out to sea. So I'm not looking at big problems out of this. But we are, again, going to catch a piece of this, likely 2-3 inches of rainfall, and wind gusts, again, at the shoreline in Virginia Beach of around 40, 50 miles an hour. Here's where we are during the day tomorrow, 82 to 85. Move on into the day, coming up on the end of the day, and then we move on into Wednesday. Same kind of thing, 82, 85 degrees into the region, southeast wind at about 11 miles an hour. That's where we are with that. Now I'm going to take you out with the European forecast model from Wednesday all the way to next Tuesday. It's already making landfall, or has made landfall, right on into here, the Florida Panhandle. There's where things are by Thursday afternoon. It is to basically over the Augusta, Georgia area, or just east of Augusta, Georgia, and moving northeastward. Now it gets a little bit wound up and not quite as intense coming up by Friday morning because of the fact that it's over land. But look at the wind gusts, 30 miles an hour, 55 miles an hour at Hatteras, 30 miles an hour at Virginia Beach. It moves on out to sea pretty quickly thereafter. Winds start flipping over to the north in Virginia Beach, and we end up by 1 o'clock with rain coming to an end. Still some strong winds as this thing intensifies out to sea, and these are the dead-on winds. And then after that, we end up with clear skies and some coolish temperatures starting to warm back on up for the day on Monday and into the day on Tuesday. But I think after Tuesday, another cool front drops on through the region. So you'll see that in a 7-day forecast. Here's what's going on in terms of the clouds into the area. Sunshine and cloud cover during the day. Nothing high impact as far as Michael's impacts. It's still early. A lot of things could happen. Heavy rain, relatively brief. We could see 2-3 inches of rain, but that's in about 12, 14 hours. So, yeah, we can handle that much rain. We haven't had that much rainfall lately into the region. Tidal flooding. Outer Banks, Albemarle Sound, yes, that could happen. Southern Virginia Beach, again, that could happen as well, but it's happening basically in between the new moon and the full moon. and it doesn't look like we'll get the full effects of tides. I'm not real concerned about it, but I think we'll be on the high end of little to no impact. You might bump it up into some impact eventually. Gusts to 40 miles an hour plus, though. So we could see some wind gusts over 50 miles an hour at the ocean front, 55, 70 miles an hour for the Outer Banks. That's for most of us. So yeah, some impact out of that. Tornadoes, no, not real likely. So timing of this, late Thursday into early Friday, and then it moves offshore. In terms of the rain, we could still see some northwesterly winds continuing into the day on Friday. Short, heavy rain. Again, about 12 hours of heavy rain, 2-3 inches of rain. Wind gusts to around 40, 50 miles an hour. More than that, though, coming up for Cape Hatteras. Here's what's going on the next 7 days. 84, 86, 83. We'll have tropical air over the area. Even with the rain, it'll still make it into the low 80s, especially about later in the day coming up on Thursday. Into Thursday night, some heavy rain possible and some wind. There's Friday, 77. That rainfall coming to an end early in the day. 68 for a high temperature on Saturday, 70 on Sunday. Back up there a bit with some rain at the end of the day on Monday.